Well, good morning, friends, and welcome back to another Saturday in the Northwoods. As usual, we're out in the shop. This time I'm just trying to get the place cleaned up. After the past few weekends of working on the Everest project, I've had quite the mess going on out here. There's quite a few things out here that I've been putting off for a while that need to get done. The main one is the 60-gallon DeWalt air compressor. Failed just inside the warranty period, thankfully, and somehow I managed to find the receipt for it. Contacted customer service, and I had a new motor for it within about 2 weeks. I thought I'd end up having to wait a lot longer than that, but thankfully they were pretty helpful. All I had to do was send them some information off of the nameplate on the tank and then just proof of purchase, and they got the motor shipped out right away. So as you've probably figured out by now, it was an electrical problem with it. I believe the start capacitor on the motor failed. I was able to find a new one on eBay, albeit it's not the exact same one. In the meantime, while I was waiting for the parts to arrive, I did get it back up and running. Although it does not run as good as it did when I got it. Like I said, with that start capacitor not being the exact same one, it seems to surge a little bit once there's a bit of a load on the motor as you start to build up pressure. But I guess at this point that's neither here nor there because we got a new motor sitting over there in that box. So that's what we're going to try and do this morning. We'll get that swapped out and hopefully get this thing running good as new again. So the main symptom that was going on with this thing is no matter whether there was 5 pounds of pressure in the tank, 0 pounds of pressure in the tank, no matter what the case was, the motor just would not turn the compressor head. Which to me right off the bat kind of sounded like a bad start capacitor, which it ended up being a bad start capacitor, this guy here. And for the life of me, I could not find a direct replacement online. I found one that was close on eBay, but the voltage is a little bit lower than this one. This one I think was rated for like 300 some, and the one that I ended up putting in there was like 230, I think. But it works, just not very well. I don't know why I couldn't find a direct replacement for it. To be honest, I didn't look that hard considering I knew I had a brand new motor coming. But pretty easy problem to diagnose. Typically when a motor won't start, obviously it's kind of a bad start capacitor or a bad start winding. In this case, like I said, no matter what was in the tank for air, even if you had it completely drained and open, this would not turn. If you took the belt off, it would turn, and I mean you kind of had to give it a little bit of a spin with your finger on the pulley there and then it would take off like no problem. So that there is another indicator of a bad start capacitor. If you're able to spin the motor with your finger and then it takes off and runs like there's nothing wrong, probably a bad start winding or bad start capacitor. But easy enough to figure out if you're able to use a meter and your meter can check for capacitance. Most of these, at least every capacitor that I've ever looked at, typically has a rating on the side of it for capacitance. Typically always listed in microfarads. I don't know if you're going to be able to see this, as my camera never wants to cooperate with me. Nope, not going to happen. Anyway, this one was rated for 243 to 292 microfarads. So checking that with a meter, my fluke just read infinite, which is indicative of a bad capacitor. That fluke should read, I think, all the way up to around 10,000 microfarads, so it should have had no problem reading that. But again, it read infinite, so bad capacitor. Found one online, ordered it, swapped it out, put it in there, and now it does work. Like I said, just not well. It just kind of surges as the pressure in the tank increases, and it doesn't sound very well. I think I have a clip of that running, so I'll toss it in here so you can see what it sounds like. There are a couple other conditions that can cause the same thing to happen on a compressor like this. One being the check valve in the tank not working properly or being stuck open. So as compressed air gets fed down the fill tube into the tank, if that check valve doesn't close, the back pressure from the tank, from the air that's already stored in there, can feed back up into the head, and then that just increases the load and causes the motor to slow or stop or not start. The other one is kind of the same thing. The unloader valve down here, that's kind of what, I guess the best way to describe it is when your compressor shuts off and you hear the psh as your compressor shuts off. That's the unloader valve here, and what's that doing? or what that is doing is exactly what the name implies. It's releasing air that is trapped in the fill tube here. So that prevents this from having too high of pressure in it, and again backfeeding into the compressor head and causing the load to be too high for the motor to overcome to start. So those are two other things that you could look into. Very easy to do. I'm probably not going to go into it just because I want to get this swapped out and get this up and going again, because we have a lot to do. But 3 things to look into if your motor is not turning the compressor head. 3 most common things, at least in my opinion. Start capacitor, check valve in the tank, unloader valve. That being said, let's get this thing taken off of here and we'll get the new one wired up and popped in its place. And since we're working on this today, I guess we will go ahead and replace the power cord with some SO cord to appease the comment section. So inside the box, the new motor came in. This was pretty convenient. They were nice enough to send a parts list for the motor. So now I actually have the part number for the start and run capacitors. So I might actually be able to find the correct one now for that motor. Which will be nice because, I mean, the rest of the motor is good. So if I can find the correct capacitor for it, I will have a functioning spare here. So that is kind of nice. But if anybody else needs part numbers, there you go. I think I have the part number for the belt laying around somewhere too, because I remember that being a pain in the ass to find online, and I ended up asking the customer service rep from Sanborn for that belt number, and he had it. So oddly enough, there's like 3 different numbers on the belt, and none of those are the part number for the belt, which I thought was weird. Alright, we're all locked down, tensioned, hopefully good enough. We'll find out in a second. I guess we'll just take this off all the way. Yeah, let's go ahead and put that wherever you want. Alright, I suppose before we change out the power cord, let's plug this in and see if it's going to work. I'm willing to bet we're going to have to mess around with that belt tension a little bit. So good. Now that we know that that's working, let's cut the power to it again from the panel, and we'll go ahead and change out that power cord. Yeah, not a huge fan of the belt squeak there. I don't know if there's anything that I can do, if I can like put some dressing on it or something, but it definitely seems like it's tight enough now. But I don't know. I'll deal with it for now. It's just a noise. Alrighty, trying to roughly match this. Well, actually, you know what? We probably don't even need to make this anywhere near as long. I think I originally made it as long as it was because I wasn't sure where I was going to be putting it. Realistically, I think probably about half as long would be fine. 3/4, we'll say. You know, I guess I have enough of this stuff. It really doesn't matter, does it? Let's just pull out a length and we'll call that good. So we're all wired back up. No more bare wire where there doesn't need to be bare wire. Should be much safer. Alright, so that should be fixed. I feel much better with that SO cord in there. Definitely seems like a safer option. All in all, motor change out, super easy to do. If you've got a problem similar to this, like I said, I would check one of those three things: the start capacitor, the check valve in the tank, or the unloader valve. All in all, a pretty simple setup. Not too surprised that it failed within the first year, but like I said, customer support was great and it was not hard to get parts, as long as you have your proof of purchase. But yeah, I guess that'll do it. Nice to have air back in the shop now, and I will see you guys in the future for some more projects. Take care.